Ask Mixing with Mike. We're going to go over a little bit of using mono reverbs. Now, this is actually kind of a really simple one that is really valuable and I think really important, especially for working with guitars here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set up a couple of mono auxiliary tracks. And so we're going to set these guys up here, like I always like to do, is just kind of dial them in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just set up just a simple kind of couple of reverbs here. I'm not even going to use anything that's special. I'm just going to wing it here and kind of go with a DigiDesign. Let's see if I can find just like a simple room. Like actually quite often like spring reverbs are kind of cool. But let's just kind of use like an air mono reverb. And what I want to do here just with this simple thing is I'm just going to set a mix. I can kind of use the early reflections. I'm just going to use like a bit of reverb, kind of go with a really short reverb time here on this. This is kind of the basic approach that I want. This is really cool for like working with electric guitars. And I'll kind of show you what I mean in a second here. So if we just kind of set these guys up to have a pair of buses attached, I'll just kind of go bus 17 and 18 because I like that pairing. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to keep it simple, right? Keep it really mono to mono. And so the idea is that what we'll have is this reverb that is kind of fed right off to the side. I'm going to open it up here and listen. So here, I'm going to mute this guy right here, or take this guy out. And so what I have here is like a pair of guitars that are panned hard left and right. And quite often what happens with chunky, thick guitars like this is that what you'll end up with is this thing where you put reverb on it, like you want to give it a little bit of space, but then they're too big and they're too thick and they're too dense energy-wise. So when you put a big stereo reverb on them, they really wash out a lot of the stereo sound field. And the basics of what I want to do here in a very simple way is just to kind of I'm just going to start here with one, is I just want to be able to mix in a little bit of this, and I'm actually going to put in a little bit of pre-delay. And all I'm doing is adding like a little bit of space here. So I'm going to duplicate this over to this side and kind of and so if I just kind of take it out, you can hear how dry this is. And what this does is it allows me to give it like a unique space without taking up a whole lot of room in the mix. Because if I were to take, for example, these two guys here, and let's just say that I mix it into both. So technically, these guys are feeding the other side as well. Then what you hear in the middle is a lot of space taken up in that reverb, and it really occupies a lot of unnecessary room in the mix. So just by killing those guys and leaving the reverb on either side, I now leave that center place open, and I achieve the effect of creating the space and the environment. Right, and that's just like a simple way of kind of creating some space. So you could use this with almost any instrument where you have a really dense arrangement. It's very common with guitars. This kind of guitar is a little bit too thick, but with a cleaner guitar, using something like a spring reverb mono. is like a common thing. Remember that reverbs don't have to be stereo. The idea of a reverb is that it achieves a certain effect. It's meant to add depth or space or character or something to the mix. And if it smears the overall mix, or if in order to get that reverb heard, it ends up masking all of the other reverbs that you have, then this becomes a really big problem. So it's better to just mono up the reverb, especially for things like this with electric guitars, where you can control the size of the space that they're working in, and the way that you utilize them in the mix. Anyway, there's just a quick mixing tip on using mono reverbs in a mix.